Welcome back to the channel, and in today we're going to kind of complete this one. We're going to use AutoCAD 2D, and what I'm thinking about doing after I do this video is I'm going to make a isometric video of me dimensioning this, right? So we're going to create the isometric in this video, but I don't think I discussed that too much in a lot of my other videos, and I'm going to try to start doing that a little bit more. But I will make a isometric dimensioning drawing, and what I mean by that is it's just going to have the isometric there in the middle, and then you'll have all the dimensions going around it, right? So we're going to take a look at that one in the next video, but in this one we're just going to strictly work using 2D AutoCAD. All right, so I'm just going to flip over to AutoCAD and get started on this one. Okay, so drawing the 2D of this shouldn't be that complicated for us. I'm going to start off with a rectangle, and I'm going to type in my commands just to save us some time here. So I'll type in REC, enter, then I'll click here, and then I'm going to tell it where my other point will be. And it's going to be at 100, 45. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom the extents. We have our rectangle here. Let's go ahead and turn this grid off also. So I'll go ahead and turn the grid off, put my ortho on, and then let's go ahead and take a look at the running O snaps that I typically have turned on. So these are the ones I'll typically use, okay? Next, let's go ahead and do our fillet command. So we're gonna go to fillet, radius, type in a radius of 15. And then I'm gonna tell it that I have multiple, so I'll select multiple, and then I'll go ahead and click these two corners here. Same on this side. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and place this circle that's located here. Remember that it is 15 from this corner and going 30 up. So I'm just going to use a circle center diameter. And now remember I showed you in some other videos how we can move the UCS. I'm going to show you another way without moving the UCS. And if you saw this in some of my earlier videos, this is another method that I commonly use, but it takes a little bit more steps. So I'm going to shift and right click and select from. I'll click this endpoint. Then I'm going to type in the @ symbol, and now I'll type in 15, 30. Go ahead and hit enter. And then I'll type in the diameter of my circle, which is 10. This is going to be the same on both sides, so I'm just going to go ahead and mirror this across. Use the mirror command, select the circle, enter. We'll go from that midpoint to that midpoint. Go ahead and hit enter. We can draw a circle here, so we have two circles I have to create. I'll create the diameter one first. So circle center diameter from this midpoint. Diameter is 40. And then I'll choose circle center radius. Go to the same midpoint here. And this is going to have a radius of 25. Okay. Let's go ahead and do some trimming. So let's go to trim. We can trim off this portion here and right here in the middle. I'm just going to walk these two back. All right, and we need to do one more thing to complete this front view here. We know that the length from here going up is going to be 20. So if we use the offset command, remember that I created this with a rectangle. So I'm going to use the X reference. Remember that shortcut for that is going to be XL, enter. Then I'll type in the offset, or go select offset down here on my command line. Give it a distance, which is going to be 20. Select this line here, and then click above it. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the escape button, and then we're going to trim off these extra portions on the outside, but we can use the EX trim command. So EX trim, go ahead and hit enter. Go ahead and select this line here, and then click to the outside, and it should get rid of those lines for us. Sometimes it takes a little bit to process that. Okay, so this view is actually already done. Let's go ahead and start working on the top view, right? I like to make sure I keep everything in line, right? So we know what we need to create on here. We know the length and the width of this thing, right? We know that it's going to be 100 going across, and we know the depth is 60. And we broke this down in depth on that 3D AutoCAD video. So if you want to go and take a look at that, and you can see a complete breakdown of this one. But I'm just going to start off with a rectangle. I'll go ahead and touch, do not click on it, and then track up from it. And I'm just going to give it some distance. That looks good to me. I'll do a left click here. And then I'll type in its coordinates, 100, 60. Okay, so now that we have our top here, let's use that offset that we did before. So let's go to XL, enter, O, enter, 20, enter, and then go ahead and select this back line here and bring it forward. All right, so escape out of that. I'll go back to my EX trim command, hit enter. I'll select the rectangle here and then click to the outside. Now I know I'm going a little bit faster. You know, some of these videos I'll go fast and I'll go slow. So hopefully if I'm going too fast, let me know in the comment and I'll make sure I try to slow down for more videos. Let's go ahead and go to the fillet command. Let's go and specify the radius. Tell it 30, enter. Then we have multiple, right? So let's use the multiple option. And then we're going to go ahead and select here and here. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I think I'll go ahead and create a couple of layers here. I know I'm going to use them eventually later. So I'm just going to come up here to the layer property. I'll go ahead and select and make a hidden layer, right? So I'll do that one. And then we're going to go ahead and make our center line layer since we're already here. So just call it CEN %. Let's go ahead and give them some colors. So my center line layer, I usually like to make that the cyan color. And on my hidden one, I usually like to make that a color red, right? So let's go ahead and select that. And we're going to make that color number 1. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and put the line types in, right? So for the hidden one, you know we have to go to load. We'll scroll down and I usually like to use the ones that says hidden 2. It's just half the size of a regular size one. I'll go ahead and use that one, select here, hit OK. And then I'll go find my continuous one for my center line here. Go ahead and go to load, scroll down to center 2, hit the OK, select it, then hit OK. Okay. Now I can close this. Let's go ahead and track some lines here, right? So I'm just going to use XL. That stands for our construction line, remember. We're going to make some vertical ones. So I'll select vertical. And now I'm just going to go between these two quadrants. These two quadrants. And I'm going to zoom into here a little bit more. I'm going to give you that endpoint here. This endpoint. And then I'll select these two quadrants. Okay, let's zoom out. So everything I need now, I need to just trim it off, right? So I'm going to go to the trim command. And this time I will select some cutting edges. So I'll go to cutting edges. And I'm just going to select and go right between here. Hit enter. And then I'll draw a fence going right across here. And then come down a little bit more and go across here. Okay, so now we have that completed. I need to make some of these going to be some hidden lines, right? So I'm just going to select these two, and then these two, and then the two in the middle. So once I have those lines selected, I'll come to the drop down here at the top. Go ahead and make them hidden. And then hit escape. Now I'm not necessarily worried about them having the hidden characteristics right now because we have not defined what the scale factor is. So don't worry about showing the dashes or anything of that nature in between them. Okay. Now if you remember in the other two videos, the one that I did in Inventor and the one that I used in 3D AutoCAD, we omitted the other view here, right? But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and put the other view here since we're drawing this in AutoCAD. So I'm going to slide this to the side. And we're going to go ahead and create the other view. So I'll use a construction line. So, well, yeah, I don't want to use a construction line. I'm just going to use a regular line. I'll go with the line command here. I'm just going to touch this endpoint and track away from it. I'll give it about a distance. That looks good to me. I'll do a left click here. Go over this direction. A distance of 60. Let's go up a distance of 70. Let's go inward 20. We're going to go down 50. We're going to go here to the left 40. And then C to close. All right. So now we have all of those created. Let's go ahead and project some of those lines over here like we did before. So I'm going to go back to the construction line. This time I'll select horizontal. And the lines that I'm going to use, let's zoom in again. And we're going to use this one and this one. We have a line that's going here. And then we're going to have one more quadrant sitting right here. Let's escape out of that. Let's go over here and take a look at what we've created. Let's use the trim command. So trim. Let's go ahead and use some cutting edges, which is going to be these two lines here. Hit enter. And then I'm just going to trim off these portions here and here. Okay. Let's escape out of here. I'm going to select these two lines here and this line here. And like before, we're going to go ahead and put those on the hidden layer. Okay. So now we have basically our views already created, right? We have our front view. We created our right side view. And then we created the top view. Now let's start working on creating the isometric. All right, so I'm just going to move this stuff to the side. I'm going to switch over the isometric by selecting here. Remember that we can cycle through our isometric top, left, and right by either using this at the bottom or, and it should tell me the way I can cycle through this. Or the other option is, let's see, it's F5 on our keyboard. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start off here in the isometric top. And I'll start with the line, and I'm going to draw this bottom portion, right? So I'm just going to draw a line going straight across here. And that distance will be 100. I'm going to go back this direction. And let's zoom in. 60. I'm going to go back this direction, 100. And then I'll go see to close, right? All right, so we basically created the bottom portion of this. And next, what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to start going ahead and putting those fillets in here. Remember that we don't have the fillet command in this program, right? I have to create an ellipse. So EL, enter, then I enter. I'm just going to click it here, and then the radius of our iso circle is going to be 30, right? So we have this shape, and I'm going to copy this to make two of them. So I'll copy this and move it over to the side. And now what I need to do with this is I need to place the centers at these endpoints. So I'm going to grab this center here and place it at that endpoint. And likewise here on the other one, I'm just going to select this center and place it on that endpoint. Okay, we have something that looks like that. I'm going to select both of these circles. I'm going to move them, and I'm going to move them by the distance of the radius. So I'm going to go back this direction, 30. And I'm going to select this one, go use the move command. Move it inward this way, 30. Same over on this side. So I'm going to select this one, go to move, and move it in this direction, a distance of 30. Let's go ahead and trim off all of the access portion of this, or extra. And I'm just going to go ahead and use the fence, make it a little bit quicker here. Okay. So now we have this shape, right? Which is great. Okay, so let's go ahead and trim off these extra lines here on the outside as well. All right. Now I'm going to copy all of this up. Well, not all of it, because I know there's a certain portion that I'm not going to see. So I'm going to select these objects here, and then I'm just going to copy these going upward. So I'll go to copy. Remember that I have to switch my isometric. So I can select here, go to isometric left, click here, and then go up a distance of 20. All right, let's draw some lines to kind of connect this. So I'll draw a line from here, going down. And then I'll select this line, and I'm just going to copy it, right? So I'll select here, the space bar one time, select the word multiple, or sorry, copy. And then all I'm going to do is place at that endpoint, this endpoint here. I have an endpoint here, and then I should have a quadrant to locate it here. All right, so this looks good to me. Let's go ahead and kind of finish this, and I meant to copy that other line in the back there. Let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to select this line here, select the space bar one time, use copy. And all I'm doing is using a grips to copy this stuff. Okay, so now I can get rid of this line here. I'm going to go ahead and trim off this portion here. Okay. Now I'm going to intentionally keep this back line for right now. It's going to eventually go away. Let's go back and refer back to our drawing here. So we have basically, you know, this part here. So we have all of this part at the bottom. What I need to figure out now is how far is it from this line here going up. So remember that this is 20 going up, and the overall height of this thing is 45. So our 45 minus our 20 is going to be 25. Okay. So I know that this line goes up another 25. So I'm just going to use the lengthen command. I'll go to modify. And I like to use many different commands here. I could have stretched that. I could have did some other things here. But I'm going to go to this lengthen. Then I'm going to tell it at a delta. Type in 25. Enter. And then I'm just going to select that line there. Okay. So now that basically extended that line up. If I take a look at it, and then let's take a look at the properties of it just to verify this. And I already know that it is correct. If I go and I take a look at the length of it, it's going to tell me that the length of this thing is 45. So that's what you're reading over there in the properties window. Okay. With that being said, let's draw a line going straight across here. This is going to be at 100. And then we can come down, right? Okay. So now we're on the back half of this. Remember, I need to create those fillets that are located here. So I have to create them with an ellipse. ISO circle, so I for ISO circle. I'll go ahead and place it right here at this endpoint. And then we're going to put the radius of it, which is going to be 15. We're going to copy this. So I'm just going to select, and I'll use grips on this again. So I'll select here, select that option there, spacebar, C, spacebar, and then I'll click here. All right, so now I need to move these down 15. So that's going to be our first step is we'll select both of these. We'll go to the move command. Click here and come down 15. Escape out of that. And I want to move this one going this direction, 15. And then we're going to move this one, 15. Okay, let's go ahead and do our trimming like we normally do. So we'll go ahead and use the trim command. So TR, enter. We're going to go ahead and trim off these portions here. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of just this bottom part here. I'll come back and clean up the other top part here in a second. All right, I'm going to switch back to isometric top. And then I'll copy these lines here. Go out from this base point and I'm going to send it forward a distance of 20. Okay. Now I can finally get rid of this bottom line here. There's no need to really show this anymore. At this location, you can see that it kind of goes up and swings up, right? So I'm just going to trim up both of these. I'm just using the trim command, and that's going to get rid of both of those. And then what I have going on over here is that this line stops at that point. So I'm just going to trim off that portion here. Likewise here at the front here, it trims off here. Okay, and let's go ahead and finish some lines that'll go around here, right? So I'm going to start off by selecting this line here, and I'll copy it. From this endpoint down to here. Let's escape out of that command there. And then we have some other little lines here that at the top I got to go ahead and place in, right? So I'm just going to draw a line here from that endpoint going right across to this endpoint. Let's go ahead and copy this. From this endpoint. And then I'm going to place it at this quadrant. Or the midpoint will work as well. I'm going to put one at that endpoint and then one also at this endpoint. Okay. So you can see that we do have most of this created. Let's go ahead and do a couple of more things here. Let's go ahead and trim this just to clean this up here in the back. And I'm just going to clean all of that up. Okay. Let's go ahead and put our circles in, right? Now we know that we're on this face here, and we can do some calculations and figure out that. We already know that if you watch the breakdown from the other video, from this top face going up, that circle is located at a distance of 10, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a circle here, and I'm going to go ahead and switch to the isometric. Let's see, that's F5. To my isometric left here. I'm going to draw an ellipse, so EL, enter. I'll go ahead and place it at this location. Oh, I messed up, didn't I? Escape, EL, enter, I enter. Then I'll click at this endpoint. There we go. Select the word diameter. It has a diameter of 10. I'm going to copy this one from here. And I'm going to go over a distance of 70. You'll see what I did here in a second. So, all right, so I have these two. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of them. And then I'll go to move. Click this endpoint, come over this direction, a distance of 15. And then I'm going to move them again. So I'll select both of these. And go upward a distance of 10. All right. So now we have that in place, and we know that these don't show through. If you looked at the three-dimensional or the ones that I've created in other ones, you see that that actually does not show through. But now we're going to work here at the top of this, right? So let's go ahead and draw a big ellipse, and this is the reason why I left this line as long as I did, because I want this to still have its true midpoint there. So I'll go to EL, enter, I enter. We're going to select here, and we're going to draw a circle that has a radius of 25. Then we're going to come back to the ellipse command. So EL, enter, I enter. I'm going to select that same midpoint. This time I'm going to change to a diameter, and then I'll tell it that it has a diameter of 40. All right, so these are going to be my two circles here. Let's go ahead and do a trim real quick. So I'll trim, click here, and here. Let's go ahead and trim off these portions now because we don't need them. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer just to make sure I get that piece off there. Okay. Let's escape out of here. Let's go ahead and switch our isometric. So let's go ahead and switch to an isometric top. Copy these two here. Enter. I'll just go from this endpoint here to that endpoint. Okay, and then I can select this line here. Select here. I'm just going to copy this line in a few different locations. Spacebar one time, select the word copy. And then the first places I'm going to place it is going to be at this endpoint here. And then the next place is going to be at that quadrant that's located there. Okay. Now let's go ahead and clean all of this up, and we should be about done with this. So let's go to the trim command, and I'm going to start here in the back. So I'm going to work this going up this direction. So that is gone. Next, I'm going to get rid of this line that goes in between here. So I'll just go ahead and clean out all of this. And you will see that this line goes all the way until it can't be seen anymore by this overhang here. Okay, so that is done. Likewise with this line here. So I'm going to trim this one backwards to here. Okay, so now we're at the portion of where we can just get rid of this line in between here, here, and let's zoom into here as well. Okay. And now we're worried about what's going to show through. So we have our circle here, and we have that circle in the back. So we know from here, it does not show anything through to here. Okay. And that looks like we should have everything we need. Let me escape out of that to show you how to create an isometric, right? So hopefully that was informative to you. It takes a little bit of work or something to do this, but you can see in the 3D programs, it goes a lot quicker. But, you know, this method is tried true. and it works still. Now, what I was telling you about in the intro there is that in my next video that I'm going to do, I don't know if I'm going to recreate this isometric again. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a drawing out of just this isometric with dimensions on it, right? And the reason I like to do that is that sometimes that when people want to know, well, how do you draft and how do you create things, is that you have to know what to do when you have a view that looks like this and someone says, hey, give me a drawing to manufacture this. Well, you're going to have to come up with the ways to create those 3 views. Oftentimes, or 2 views. Oftentimes, it's going to say, hey, you need to be able to create this. If you're not able to create that or see this, that's what true drafting is. You got to be able to see things that are not necessarily there yet. Okay? All right. Now let's go ahead and jump over to the drafting portion of this. So first thing I'm going to do is get rid of my isometric. So now I'm out of isometric. I'm ready to create a title block. So depending on which method you want to use, let's see, we can use either standard, the annotation, or paper space. A lot of times when we use the 3D stuff, that's paper space, so I don't want to kind of rehash that again. So I like to eventually kind of, go between either annotation or the standard. In this case, I'm going to use the annotation one. All right. So I'm going to create a rectangle. And we're going to use a title block, right? So we got to create this with a rectangle. So REC. Our lower left corner will be at 0, 0. Upper right will be at 17, 11. Let's go ahead and zoom into this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to offset a distance of 0.25. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do here is go ahead and select both of these. I'll hit the create button just to make it into a block. And when I have this, I usually like to give it a name of TB. It's already at 0, 0, 0. Everything else should be fine in here. And then we'll hit OK. And now it's made a block, right? The benefits of that is that whatever I scale this up to becomes my new scale factor. Okay, so now we need to determine what the scale factor is. Now, I still have the one that I did using AutoCAD 3D. And if I jump over to this tab, this should look familiar to you if you watched that other video. In this one, what we find is that we used a scale factor, and I'm going to go ahead and select this and hit Edit View. And it's going to tell me what the scale of this is. So you can see that is, what, 3/4 equals a foot. If for those of you, and this is kind of one of those interesting things, I would like for you to try to figure out what the scale factor is. You can leave that below down there below in the comments. And, it's kind of one of those curious things. I don't know if I really discussed that too much. I know I have a lecture where I tell you exactly what that is. Now, when I switch back to my other drawing, we're going to make it bigger than that. So I'm not going to give you the answer on this one. But if you do leave me a comment below, I will let you know if you guessed it correctly or you answered it correctly. Okay? So remember that we're looking at 3/4 equals a foot. I'm asking, what is the scale factor of that one? Okay, let me jump back over to this drawing here. And I'm going to select this title block here. I'm going to right click and open my properties. And then I think I'm going to use a scale of, let's call it 24. Okay. 24 looks like it gives me plenty enough room to move around. So I'm just going to go ahead and move. Get all of my shapes on the inside of here. Let's go ahead and turn the ortho off. And that looks good to me. Then we're going to go ahead and put our isometric into here. So I'll just go ahead and move that into position as well. Okay. Now we can start off by, putting our dimensions and things of that nature. But let me go ahead and adjust the scale factor. Now we used a scale factor of 24, right? So I'm going to click the fly up here. And then I'm going to go and figure out which one of these will give me a 24. Well, it just so happened that 1/2 equals a foot. It's going to be 24. When I select this and then do a regen, now you can just see those dotted lines and those hidden lines show up, which they do. Okay, so from this point I can go ahead and put in my center marks. So I'm just going to jump over here to the annotative, go ahead and put the center lines. I'll select these 2 lines here. And what I'm looking for is to see if that extension is long enough. And you can see that it is barely long enough, right? So I'm just going to delete that. I'll use the center EXE command. And let's go ahead and give it a distance like 3. And then I'll use the center layer command. And then set it equal to the center layer that I created before. Alright, so now when I use the center line, I'll go ahead and select these 2 hidden lines here. And you can see that it is a little bit longer. And I'm going to go back and verify and make sure that this is on the center line layer or the correct layer. But I'm just going to keep going at this point. So I'll just go ahead and place these 2 here. Hit the enter button and then do the ones that are here. And what I mean by that is you'll see that this is not showing up as a center line, right? So let me verify and make sure that I did indeed put that on the center layer. So you can see that the center layer, those are centers. So that tells me that these are just super small. So what I'm going to do is select them. And let me zoom in. I'll go to my properties window. And then underneath the line type scale, always make these smaller. If you make them bigger, then you won't see them, right? So you can see that I made them at a 0.5 and they do show up and appear. Okay, so that's all I need to do for this view. Let's go ahead and put the center marks on this one. Let's jump back to the annotative. Let's go find our center marks. And what I like to do is always select the biggest one so my center lines and center marks extend out past the longer one. And likewise here. Okay. So all of my center marks are on this one. Then let's go ahead and put some center lines on this one. So I'm going to go a center line between here and here. And then I'm missing one on this big one here. I'll go a center line from this line here to this line. And the only reason you can see why it's not included because it does indeed cover up this line here. So I'm just going to remove that just for clarity. This one needs to show like the other ones. I'll zoom out. And I'll use the match properties command. And what you're going to do is select the source one first. So I want everything to look like that. And then I'm going to make this one look like that. Okay. All right. Last thing we need to do is set up a dimension layer. So I'm just going to come back to my layer properties. Come to here. Call it DIM. Enter. Right, and then we can change the color of it, right? Whatever color I wanted, I'm just going to give it a color so we can see it. Let's go ahead and make it green. Hit OK on this one, and I'm just going to verify that the color is green and the line type is continuous. Let's hit close on this. Let's jump back to the annotative one. Underneath the layer, I'm just going to select here, and then I'm going to tell it to use the dimension layer. And then we're going to go ahead and set it up. So I'm just going to click this drop down here. Or select D, enter on your keyboard. Double click on the annotative one. If you verify up here at the top that annotative is your current one, then we're going to hit the modify button. You know I always start on the right tab and then work my way left. Alright, so I'm just going to start with the primary units. We're going to go ahead and suppress these trailing zeros. We don't need to see them. Underneath the fit, remember we don't have anything to do with here because we're using annotative. Underneath our text, trying to see if this text is going to be too big. I don't know for sure. I'll just make it 0.125. Symbols and arrows. Let's go ahead and make our center marks none. And then one last step that I like to do is strictly optional, but the extension here, I usually like to keep that the same height as my text height. Okay. Let's hit the OK button, and let's hit close. Alright, so now we're ready to start doing some dimensioning, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and knock out some linear dimensions. Let's go ahead and put a linear dimension from here to here, and this is one way I can see that text height, and that looks perfect for what I want to see. Now, I'm going to use my next one here, and I'm going to pick them in a certain order. So if this text does not stay in the middle of this, it's going to kick out here to the left. So I have to select this endpoint first, and then that one, and then come down. And you can see that that's exactly what it did. That will help you with your keystrokes, right? I'll go back to the linear. Go from this endpoint to this one. Just keep everything in line with each other. So I'll select this endpoint. I'll just hit the enter button to speed things up a little bit. Let's go ahead and click this endpoint here to here. Hit the enter button again, go from this endpoint here to here. And all I'm doing is hitting enter on my keyboard, and that's going to help speed things up. I'll do all of my linear dimensions first. So I'm just going to keep hitting enter. Now this is one continuous line. I can hit enter and then select the whole continuous line. Likewise here at the bottom, so I'm going to hit enter once. That takes me back to the last command. Then I'll hit enter, and you should see your icon change to that square. Go ahead and click here. I'm just going to make sure that it's even with this one over here, so I'll select that endpoint. Go ahead and hit the enter, and then enter again. This is going to be my 20. Enter twice again, and then I'll have the one that's up here. Okay, along here at the top we have a radius dimension, right? So we're going to switch over to our radial dimensions. We'll go ahead and place one here. Come down to here. I'm just going to hit the enter command and select here. Click it here. Okay, just a few more radial dimensions. Let's see, we have one here as well. And then we just have a couple of diameter dimensions. So we have one here. I'll hit the enter button on my keyboard here, and we have one here. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and make this a reference dimension here. And the way that we do that is that we would just double click on it, just like we would edit any text. And then what I usually like to do is use the arrows, right? So I'll use the left arrow, put the open parentheses, and then use my right arrow, and then put the close one. Let's click off of this one. I'll come over here and click on this one. So this is going to be in two places. Once again, I'll use that left arrow, put a 2x, space, click off of it, and then I'll go to the next one here, which is my diameter here. That's going to be a 2x. And then we have one more sitting here. So we have this in two places as well. Okay. And that should be everything that we need to create this drawing, right? So hopefully you enjoyed this one. Look out for my next video. Like I said, I will try to make a isometric drawing. So I haven't decided if I'm going to go through the isometric again or not. That's probably a good question for you guys. Would you like to see? It's going to make the video a lot longer, but it's really good for people that, you know, have never did isometric or may have not seen this video. So I'm leaning more toward remaking the isometric in that video, but let me know in the comments. And also, still, if you can remember what I said before, tell me what and I forgot about the scale of it already in this one. Let's see, I think it was 3/4. Yes, it was 3/4 equals a foot. Let me know in the comments below what this scale factor is, right? And it was just like in the drawing that we just did, we figured out the scale factor here was 20 or 24. Oh, 24. Okay? So if you can use that same logic to produce that, you know, that'll help me out a lot. And if you don't know it, let me know also in the comments, and I'll make a video dedicating to just showing you how to calculate scale factors and where did this stuff come from. Okay? All right, so thank you for watching. Thanks to all the people that are subscribing and that are continuously coming back. We are, you know, this channel is growing, and I really do appreciate it. All right, so until the next video, and once again, look out for my next video where I do the isometric drawing of this one. Bye-bye.